Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Terima kasih Michael Yo, Dr. Utama, Dr. Yuta, rekan-rekan yang saya muliakan. Saya kami satu kehormatan untuk bersama mengupas beberapa masalah yang menyentuh tentang ekonomi dan juga masa depan dan arah tuju negara. Kita telah lalui satu proses yang sangat menakjubkan, tetapi sudah sampai kepada ketikanya di mana kita akan upaya kita diukur dari segi kesungguhan kita melaksanakan perubahan dan pembaharuan yang diharapkan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen, I don't need to repeat this common assertion, we have observed the great public revulsion against egregious mafias, corruption that has affected the entire cultural, political fabric in this country. And there is, of course, as I said, public reaction, revulsion, but it has its antecedents. It's not spontaneous. Many of us have talked about it, mostly in confidence and in private, because the system does not allow us to articulate this vision. Many of us, political elites, academicians, business elite, were complicit either directly in the crime perpetrated against the people or being a bit muted against these excesses. This is, of course, a reflection of the utter failure of institutions and the elites in this country. That's the past. This morning, Prime Minister Mahathir launched the National Anti-Corruption Plan, where generally many of us would remain cynical about new plans, new directions, because in 2004, if I'm not mistaken, there was an impressive, well-crafted National Integrity Plan. It was never seriously implemented. So it is quite heartening for me to hear Prime Minister Mahathir asserting in stronger terms about the need to ensure that the anti-corruption drive is not only dealing about the excesses of the past, but having a close scrutiny for the excesses of the present. The ministers, public officers, and even the corporate sector, the private sector, must be told in uncertain terms that we mean business, we will not ever tolerate these excesses of rampant endemic corruption in this country. And I think the issue of good governance is central in our discourse. We can craft an impressive economic plan. And as you know, there is no certainty that plans will work. There are disruptions. Events can be, not all can be designed, anticipated with certainty. You know, this is a period that some political scientists have termed as post-normal times. You can't anticipate change. There's a spontaneity that one former Secretary of the United Nations mentioned, be it climate change, to the flow of migrants, to civil strife, civil wars, to even trade wars. It is certainly unprecedented for a country like the United States of America, the bastion of free trade, to opt for protectionism, and China now to be seen or perceived to be supportive of free trade. These are post-normal times. A friend of mine joked, even more post-normal when you have Anwar and Mahathir working together. But I think to cut that story short, I have said and I've explained in the past, my reason is because both of us want to move on, and I think much that I feel in a way, and my family suffer immensely, I think the country must take precedence over the suffering. So, you have crafted, Michael, I mean, you are the experts here, crafting what you mean by economic policy, digital economy, etc., etc. But you would realize that change makers are also the realists. And realistic enough to secure attainable what is attainable, or what's deemed to be attainable. And therefore, I would still reiterate the importance of good governance. The leaders are not supposed to presume that they know all. They must have the humility to reflect, listen, and access. We have seen in the past this penchant, the assumption that once you become a leader, you can craft all agendas for the country. No. You must be prepared to accept the limitations and to rely on some of expertise. My only caution is, based on our experiences in the past, that the so-called experts in Kuala Lumpur sometimes have a major problem of disconnect with the realities, the stark realities in our society. I'm not unnecessarily reacting to Cameron Highland's defeat, but it has a bearing. Because as far back as 1961, Royal Professor Aziz reminded planners, economists, bankers in Kuala Lumpur when deliberating on the issue of grinding poverty soon after independence, when planners and economists tend to say, look, we are doing very well, the country is peaceful, economic policies is commendable, and we are beginning to attract foreign investments, and we are about to be seen as the premier country in Asia. That was the political rhetoric, absorbed, supported by many, particularly the ruling elite. But he said their recommendations oftentimes ignore the plight of those marginalized, which include, of course, the poor. He was dealing, of course, at that time Malaya, and looking at pockets of poverty in East Johor and the East Coast, particularly in Pahang, where the problems faced by the fishermen and the poor farmers has very little bearing with those crafted, recommended by the policy planners in Kuala Lumpur. Now, of course, we have changed. Piketty has made inequality the new buzzword, has caused a lot of excitement among academics and planners. UNICEF has published some years back a very disturbing report on poverty and inequality in Kuala Lumpur. Now I'm suggesting this because I maintain that whilst the economy must move forward, which means we must support and provide all necessary incentives to ensure that Malaysia becomes an attractive destination for foreign direct investments. No qualms about that. I was discussing with the High Commissioner just now that we are blessed, Malaysia, because through the FTAs in the past, we have been able to generate so much interest and propel the growth of the economy. Having said that, I must also recognize the fact that we do face major problem of what we consider as grinding poverty or general poverty among those in Sabah, Sarawak, those in the rural heartland, in Semenanjung, in Malaya, the Indian estate workers, and the urban poor. And now, statistics have shown that urban poor is now a major problem that will affect us in crafting our economic plan for the future. Now, I've left this issue of new incentives because I think this is adequately addressed by most forums in Kuala Lumpur. Economists, planners, analysts would strongly recommend, and I normally would like to associate with them. I support, because I think that's the only way forward to attract and to ensure that Malaysia is and will remain attractive. We are living in a competitive world. We have to utilize, not talking about problems of the trade war, but how to utilize to ensure that we can attract investments, including from the United States of America and China during this period of trade war. You can lament about the trade war, fair, but then there are, of course, avenues where we can exploit. And this is why I think it is very encouraging when the Prime Minister said today that this so-called confusion about the decision to cancel or not the massive mega project with China will be addressed in with some clarity by the Finance Minister soon. Because whether we like it or not, China is an important partner. We have of course issues with China, things we may choose disagree. Malaysia is a vibrant democracy. We believe in institutional reform. We are committed to represent the conscience of the majority of our people. But it is also a trading nation that will require investments from countries, and China certainly is critical to the destiny of this nation. The other issue I referred to earlier is the issue of inequality. Of course, reference to Atkinson or the recent writings of Piketty. But making reference to this and at the same time stuck to the old obsolete policies is no longer tenable. That is why many of my Malay friends and intellectuals question my decision to chart a new Malaysian economic agenda as far back as in 2007. This is of course to replace the new economic policy. Now, we need to help and assist to explain this. It's just not to appease the urban crowd who like to know that there should be more transparent, fair policy, non-discriminatory, reject and dismantle the economic policy and replace it with the Malaysian economic agenda. Yes, I crafted that in 2007, before the elections in 2008. And I stand by it, because I think this is clearly realistic, rational, and would secure the interests of all Malaysians. But we need to explain that this is not a zero-sum game. Dismantling the economic policy is not to impoverish the Malays, but to give them this new sense of confidence, to give them adequate opportunities to compete with the others. But on a need-based policy, which later the administration of then Prime Minister Najib adopted in part, I think by 2010, 2011. But the whole problem about governance is the execution of this policy. First, we cannot assume that what the elites articulate and craft is well understood by the people. So it is our duty then to ensure that policies must be well understood. We talk about vibrant democracy, but we craft policies among us and we leave them. And then we express our displeasure because they seem to be stuck with obsolete thinking or policies. That is why, or precisely the reason why, I believe we need to ensure that in this new vibrant democratic outlook, new policies must be well understood, not to cater for the interests of small groups of members who like to be seen to be acceptable to the new urban elite thinking, but to ensure that policies are well crafted that represent the aspirations and the conscience of the majority. And the majority has to grapple with quality education, quality public health, and quality infrastructure, urban and rural. And I think this is the new direction for this country, to replace what I consider the obsolete race-based policies. But because of our failure to articulate this vision, we still have to grapple with views that represent the past by suggesting that any attempt to introduce or shift the paradigm would mean disaster or impoverishing a sector of our community. Having said that, we need to then embark on bold reforms. This is a period where the economic scenario is being challenged. The price of commodities is affecting the livelihood of our people. And whilst one can say that this is populist, I've heard this long before, any attempt to help the poor is populist. Any attempt to reduce inequality is populist. But if you do suggest that, then we actually are talking about crafting a policy to cater for a small segment of those with adequate opportunities and ignore the plight of the majority. So I think I want to share with you this fundamental question which is close to my heart. I'm very passionate about it, because I think the whole issue of governance is to ensure justice for all. And we cannot be talking about crafting an economic policy that do not cater for the welfare of the majority. The programs may differ slightly, yes. For example, I do not share necessarily these handouts that will lead to this dependency syndrome. There was a leftist scholar, very known economist, Samir Amin, who talks about the economic infrastructure or policies The rich countries will help the poor to ensure that the poor, the African, the Asian, and Latin American countries continue to be dependent on them. That is what is foreign aid initiative, the dependency syndrome. Domestic governments tend to follow the same policies. You give handouts to the villagers, to the farmers, to ensure that they remain obliged and continue to support you, not to alleviate them and ensure that they become new, successful entrepreneurs. So the approach must change from a dependency syndrome to that which would be able to allow them to be economically independent. Finally, this relates to the issue of digital revolution or digital economy. Whether this is a new initiative that would result in growing inequality between the very rich and the poor, or alternatively, to allow digitalization, the opportunity for even the poor farmers and fishermen to know their rights and to demand what is just for them. It has been tried in some places, Brazil, in India, and I think we have companies here, bright young entrepreneurs in digital economy. I would certainly want to work with them, seek their views and expertise, how we can ensure that this segment will not be ignored. I mentioned to them, I had a session with some of the young entrepreneurs, including mylorry.com. I thought it's a bit odd. Why this guy is talking about lorry using this t-shirt, mylorry.com. It's not impressive at all. I represent the old school, you know, minus the tie. But when I asked, it's very interesting. This is a small, growing company that registers as far as many as they can, small lorry owners in some villages and towns and suburban areas, and having apps that would allow them then to have direct contact, some sort of quality service, and they are expanding quite fast, opening even up branches in Bangkok and Jakarta. I mean, this is one small example. I've probably some other companies will be relatively more successful. But I'm saying that these are avenues that we need to encourage as a government and institutions, while supporting the big guys, will not forget the small guys that would be able to give meaning to what trickle-down economics is all about. When I was finance minister, even I was a bit cynical, but trickling down means no, it doesn't trickle down, it always trickle up. So I think these are areas that we need to address. I must take this opportunity to thank you again. I decided to ignore my economic paper and address issue that I think I am so passionate about. So all these years, I am stronger in my views on democratic accountability, on issues of freedom, and issues of justice for all, which means the poor, be it the Malays in the rural heartland, or the Dayaks and the Kadazans in Sabah Sarawak, the Indians in the estates, or the Chinese in the urban, congested urban poor. And I think we, as Malaysians, must have this courage and bold enough to address this as a Malaysian issue, not a Chinese, Indian, Malay or Sabah or Sarawak issue. That is, in essence, what I consider new Malaysia is all about. Terima kasih.